If tonight you opened your fridge and picked up a simple vegetable you've eaten for decades, would you ever believe it might alter your speech, your balance, or your morning strength? It sounds unbelievable, I know. Yet it's something I've seen far too often in seniors who genuinely try to eat healthy. Not because the vegetable is harmful, but because your body after 60 works differently than it did at 40. Your kidneys process slower, your arteries lose flexibility, your hormones shift quietly, and even small changes in fluids, minerals, or nighttime blood pressure can have a much bigger impact on your brain. My name is Dr. James, a neurologist in the United States with more than 20 years caring for older adults. And what I'm about to share comes from real experience, not fear. The surprising truth, my friend, is that even the healthiest vegetables can trigger dangerous reactions in an aging body when timing, quantity, or medication shift the balance. After 60, blood can thicken faster, nighttime pressure can fall lower, sugar can spike higher, and hydration can drop without any warning. These small imbalances happen quietly, yet they create 6 conditions neurologists watch closely. Thicker blood, sudden pressure drops, pressure spikes, glucose surges, hidden dehydration, and hormone shifts that slow your circulation. And when these changes appear together at night, especially between 2 and 6 a.m., the brain becomes incredibly vulnerable. Before we go deeper, if you're over 60, please tap subscribe and turn on the notification bell. These next minutes may change how you look at your vegetables forever. And if you're ready, type the number 9 so I know you're here with me. If you need me to improve anything, comment 0 so I can adjust the next video for you. Now, to help you understand how your body is truly changing, let's begin with the first vegetable almost every household keeps without a second thought. 1. Spinach. The vitamin K trap. It may sound unbelievable, my friend, but the more seniors try to eat healthy, the more often I see strokes triggered by the very greens they trust. Spinach looks gentle, clean, and safe. Yet for many adults over 60, it quietly changes how the blood behaves. And it happens not because spinach is harmful, but because your body processes it very differently now compared to your younger years. As we age, our liver slows down, our arteries stiffen, and medications stay in the bloodstream longer. When you add a vegetable extremely high in vitamin K into that mix, something unexpected happens. Vitamin K thickens the blood. This is normally helpful for healing. But if you take blood thinners, even mild ones, vitamin K can push in the opposite direction. Your medication tries to keep the blood smooth and flowing, while the spinach tries to make it clot faster. That conflict creates a quiet imbalance many seniors never feel. And when blood thickens at night, especially during the early morning hours when circulation naturally slows, small clots can form without pain, warning, or sensation. These tiny clots may drift into narrow arteries that feed speech, coordination, or facial movement. Before I share the case, let me tell you why these examples matter. They help you understand how real seniors, just like you, experience these silent changes. One of my patients, Mr. Harold, 72, from California, ate a large spinach salad every evening. He believed he was protecting his heart. He also took a consistent dose of blood thinner for mild atrial rhythm issues. Over several weeks, his INR levels, markers of blood thickness, shifted wildly without symptoms. One morning, he woke unable to move his right hand. A tiny clot had lodged in a small artery supplying the motor area of his brain. His intentions were good, but the imbalance between spinach and his medication created the perfect storm. The good news is that you don't need to stop eating spinach. You simply need consistency. Eat a stable amount each week. Avoid the pattern of skipping greens for several days and then eating a large bowl at once. Sudden changes make the blood fluctuate most. If you've ever taken a blood thinner, please comment yes, so I know you're in the group that needs extra guidance. But if you think spinach only thickens the blood, the next vegetable can actually make your blood flow far too quickly. And that brings a different danger entirely. 2. Beets. The nighttime blood pressure crash. It's surprising, my friend, how a vegetable praised for heart health can quietly put the brain at risk during sleep. Beets look harmless, colorful, and naturally supportive. Yet for many seniors, they carry a hidden danger that appears only after the lights go out. That danger begins with something most older adults never consider: nighttime blood pressure changes. Beets are rich in natural nitrates, compounds that relax blood vessels and lower blood pressure. For younger bodies, this shift feels gentle and helpful. But after 60, the way your arteries respond becomes very different. Arteries stiffen, the heart pumps with less force, and nighttime circulation slows naturally. If you also take blood pressure medication, especially the evening dose, the combined effect can push your pressure too low. When pressure drops too far, blood no longer moves through your brain with the steady rhythm it needs to stay safe. This slow flow is the silent problem. Thickened blood moving sluggishly through aging vessels can form tiny clots, especially between 2 and 6 a.m. Those hours are when the brain is most vulnerable and least able to compensate. Before I share the example, let me explain why it matters. Case stories help you see how easily a simple habit becomes a risk without you noticing it. One of my patients, Mrs. Lorraine, 81 from Texas, drank beet juice every evening. She believed it kept her heart strong and her pressure controlled. She also took a low-dose nightly blood pressure pill. For several weeks, she felt fine, maybe a little lightheaded when standing, but she brushed it off. One morning, she tried to rise from bed and collapsed. Her words tangled, her vision spun, and her balance disappeared. Imaging later showed a small ischemic stroke in the cerebellum, the part controlling coordination. Her pressure had fallen too low overnight, slowing the blood just enough to let a clot form. You don't need to avoid beets entirely. You simply need to use timing wisely. Enjoy them earlier in the day, when your natural pressure is higher. Avoid mixing them with your evening medication, and never drink beet juice close to bedtime. If you take your blood pressure pills at night, please comment BP so I know you're someone who may need extra guidance. And if low pressure is dangerous, the next vegetable shows what happens when the body quietly loses water while you sleep. 3. Celery, the silent dehydrator. It's surprising how a snack that feels light, refreshing, and almost guilt-free can thicken the blood more than almost any other vegetable. Celery looks crisp and clean, yet for many seniors, it quietly creates the perfect conditions for dehydration, especially during the night. And dehydration, my friend, is one of the most overlooked stroke triggers in older adults. Celery acts as a natural diuretic. It gently encourages your kidneys to release water and sodium. For a younger person, this effect feels mild, but after 60, your body no longer manages fluids with the same balance. Your kidneys filter more slowly, your thirst sensation weakens, and nighttime urination becomes more frequent. When you add a food that increases fluid loss, especially in the evening, you may lose more water than you replace. That water loss thickens the blood. Thick blood moves slowly, especially through small, aging vessels. And slow nighttime circulation creates the ideal environment for tiny clots to form. These clots are often silent, forming between 2 and 6 a.m., when blood pressure naturally dips and the brain receives less oxygen. Before I share the case, let me explain why I include these examples. They show how everyday habits, not dramatic mistakes, create risks for seniors without warning. One of my patients, Mr. Dennis, 79, from Georgia, loved a simple nighttime snack: celery sticks with a small spoonful of peanut butter. It felt healthy and light. He also took a mild evening diuretic for swelling in his legs. Over time, his wife noticed he woke to urinate more often. He felt slightly dizzy most mornings but assumed it was age. One morning, he stood up and his left arm felt weak. A small clot had formed during the night, when dehydration thickened his blood and slowed its flow through a narrow vessel. He recovered, but the scare changed his habits forever. You don't need to remove celery from your diet. You simply need smart timing. Eat it earlier in the day. Pair it with water. Avoid large portions at night, especially if you take diuretics or wake to urinate. If you often wake during the night to use the bathroom, please comment 1, so I know you may need extra support. But dehydration isn't the only silent danger. Another leafy vegetable can slow your hormones just enough to thicken your blood week after week. 4. Kale. The thyroid slower that thickens blood over time. It's surprising how a so-called superfood sold in every grocery store, smoothie bar, and health cookbook can quietly reduce the oxygen your brain receives by slowing your metabolism. Kale looks powerful, clean, and nourishing. Yet for many adults over 60, it creates small hormonal changes that build up week after week. And most seniors never notice the shift until their energy, clarity, or balance begins to slip. Kale contains natural compounds called goitrogens. These compounds interfere with your body's ability to absorb iodine, the mineral your thyroid needs to function. When the thyroid slows even slightly, your metabolism drops, cholesterol rises, blood thickens, circulation slows, and the brain, which depends on steady oxygen, becomes more vulnerable during sleep. For younger people, these changes barely register. But after 60, when the thyroid is already more sensitive, even small disruptions can push your body into a slower rhythm. Slow metabolism makes the blood heavier. Heavy blood moves sluggishly through narrow arteries, especially at night. And slow nighttime flow increases the risk of tiny clots forming quietly. Before I share an example, let me remind you why these stories matter. They help you understand that real seniors, not extreme cases, experience these slow, silent changes every year. One of my patients, Mrs. Judith, 75, from Colorado, started every morning with a raw kale smoothie. She believed it kept her young, energized, and balanced. For months, she felt fine, maybe slightly colder than usual or more tired in the afternoon, but she brushed it off. Over time, she gained a little weight, felt mentally foggy, and noticed her steps were less steady. One evening, she reached for her garden tools and her right hand felt weak. A small clot had formed in a branch of her carotid artery. Testing later revealed mild hypothyroidism and elevated cholesterol, both influenced by long-term raw kale intake. The slow metabolic shift thickened her blood just enough to cause trouble. You don't need to cut out kale completely. You just need to prepare it wisely. Lightly cook it to reduce its goitrogen effect. Avoid daily raw smoothies. And check your thyroid levels if you notice fatigue, coldness, or brain fog. If you drink green smoothies regularly, please comment green so I know this topic matters to you. But if we're talking about silent dangers, nothing compares to the vegetable almost everyone keeps in their pantry. 5. Canned vegetables. The hidden sodium bomb. It's surprising how a small can of vegetables, something many seniors rely on for convenience, can contain more sodium than an entire fast food meal. The label looks harmless, The portion seems modest, and the word vegetable feels safe. Yet for older adults, that salt load can quietly push blood pressure into dangerous territory. As we age, our arteries lose flexibility. They no longer stretch and relax easily the way they once did. High sodium draws water into the bloodstream, increases volume, and forces those stiff arteries to expand under pressure. When the pressure is too high, tiny cracks form along the vessel lining. Your body tries to repair those cracks, sending platelets and clotting factors to patch them. But these patches become sticky surfaces where clots can grow. It's a slow process, silent and painless, but it builds over time. And canned vegetables often contain 600 to 900 milligrams of sodium per serving, sometimes even more. For seniors, especially those with heart conditions, kidney changes, or blood pressure issues, this extra sodium doesn't simply wash out. It stays, it accumulates, and it thickens the blood just enough to create a dangerous imbalance during the night. Before I share the example, let me explain why these stories matter. They show how everyday habits, not dramatic mistakes, quietly shape your long-term stroke risk. One of my patients, Mr. Patrick, 83, from Missouri, loved canned corn and canned green beans. After his wife passed, he leaned on them for quick meals. He believed they were safe because they were vegetables. Over time, his blood pressure crept upward, 150, 165, occasionally 175. He felt fine, maybe a little tired, nothing unusual. One morning, he sat at his kitchen table unable to speak clearly. A moderate ischemic stroke had occurred overnight. His sodium levels were very high, and his arteries showed signs of chronic stress. The healthy cans in his pantry had slowly created the perfect conditions for a clot. You don't need to give up canned vegetables completely. You simply need better strategies. Choose no salt added whenever possible. Drain and rinse canned items to remove up to half the sodium. And avoid eating them at night, when your body is less able to handle fluid shifts. If you still use canned foods during the week, please comment "can" so I know this is relevant for you. But there is something even more dangerous than salt, a hidden kind of sugar inside a common vegetable that few seniors realize. 6. Potatoes, the hidden sugar trigger. It's surprising how one of the most familiar vegetables on the dinner plate can raise your blood sugar faster than a can of soda. Potatoes look harmless, comforting, and traditional. Yet for many adults over 60, they act like a hidden sugar bomb that affects the brain far more than most people realize. Potatoes are made almost entirely of starch. Once you chew them, the starch turns into glucose quickly, much faster than many desserts. For younger adults, insulin responds quickly enough to manage that sudden rise. But after 60, insulin sensitivity drops. The pancreas reacts more slowly, and the sugar stays in the bloodstream longer than it should. That lingering sugar triggers a process called glycation. Glycation irritates the vessel walls, stiffens the arteries, and increases inflammation. Over time, these tiny irritations create rough surfaces where clots can form. For seniors already dealing with slower circulation, mild cholesterol changes, or nighttime blood pressure shifts, this sudden sugar spike can be especially risky. Thickened blood moving through stiff vessels overnight is a setup for trouble, and most seniors never feel the danger building because sugar damage is silent. Before sharing the example, let me explain why these stories matter. They help you see how small habits, not dramatic choices, quietly shape your brain's long-term safety. One of my patients, Mrs. Helen, 69, from Ohio, enjoyed a baked potato with her dinner almost every night. She believed it was healthier than pasta or bread. Over several months, her morning readings showed rising glucose levels. She felt slightly more tired in the afternoons but didn't think much of it. One evening, while reading with her granddaughter, her right hand suddenly dropped the book. She couldn't form her words clearly. A small clot had traveled into her middle cerebral artery. Later tests showed inflammation and elevated A1C levels, signs that repeated sugar spikes had quietly thickened her blood. You don't need to stop eating potatoes entirely. You simply need balance. Pair them with protein or fiber to slow sugar absorption. Chicken, beans, or vegetables. Avoid large portions, instant mashed potatoes, and late-night servings, and consider switching to sweet potatoes, which release sugar more gradually. If you've ever had potatoes with your evening meal, please comment "potato" so I know this applies to you. And finally, there is one more vegetable that seems light and refreshing, yet delivers a double attack on your blood vessels. 7. Pickles and fermented vegetables. The acid and salt double hit. It's surprising how a single bite of something as small as a pickle can cause your blood pressure to swing sharply during the night. Pickles and fermented vegetables taste refreshing, crisp, and clean. Yet for many adults over 60, they create a combination of salt and acid that quietly stresses the brain while you sleep. These foods are loaded with sodium, often hundreds of milligrams in one small serving. Sodium pulls water into the bloodstream, raises volume, and increases pressure. At the same time, the acidic vinegar or fermentation compounds stimulate the vagus nerve, the nerve that helps regulate your heart rate and blood pressure. When that nerve becomes irritated, your pressure can rise and fall unpredictably. These sudden shifts make aging arteries more vulnerable, especially at night when circulation slows naturally. For seniors, this combination is especially concerning. High sodium thickens the blood. Acidic irritation triggers pressure swings, and the night creates the perfect environment for clots to form silently. You won't feel pain. You won't feel warning signs. But tiny clots can build when the blood becomes too thick to flow smoothly through stiff, narrow vessels. Before I share the example, let me remind you why these stories matter. They help you see that simple habits, ones that feel harmless, can quietly shape your long-term brain health. One of my patients, Mr. and Mrs. Parker, both in their late 70s from Pennsylvania, enjoyed a bedtime snack together. A few pickles, a handful of pretzels, and a glass of water. It was their quiet evening routine. Over several weeks, Mrs. Parker noticed she woke feeling dizzy. Mr. Parker felt more tired, sometimes slightly confused upon waking. One morning, he struggled to stand. Tests later showed mild dehydration, elevated sodium levels, and a small ischemic stroke caused by a clot formed during the night. The mix of salt, acid, and nighttime circulation changes had overwhelmed his aging vessels. You don't need to stop eating pickles or fermented foods forever. You simply need mindful timing. Choose low-sodium versions. Eat them earlier in the day. Avoid pairing them with salty snacks, and always hydrate well. If you enjoy pickles in the evening, please comment "pickle" so I know this topic matters to you. But the real danger, my friend, isn't in each vegetable by itself. It's in how your body after 60 reacts to all of them together. Before I summarize today's key lessons, let me share a gentle daily tip many of my senior patients find helpful. One vegetable I often recommend is lightly steamed broccoli. It supports circulation, digestion, and brain health without causing sudden changes in blood pressure or blood thickness. Broccoli provides steady antioxidants, reliable fiber, and natural potassium that helps balance sodium throughout the day. Its moderate vitamin K level is generally safe for seniors taking blood thinners, especially when eaten consistently. Enjoying a small serving with lunch allows your body to process nutrients comfortably while avoiding late-night circulation shifts. As we finish today's lesson, I want to remind you that protecting your brain doesn't require big, dramatic changes. Small, steady choices matter most. Consistent hydration, balanced vegetables, earlier timing, and mindful portions. Your body after 60 responds differently, and understanding those differences gives you real power. You are not fragile. You are simply working with a new rhythm, and every thoughtful habit supports that rhythm. If even one idea today helps you feel more confident about your health, then this time together was worthwhile. You deserve clarity, strength, and many more peaceful mornings ahead.